Sis, how often do you find yourself saying yes to the things that don't feel good? Adjusting your expectations quietly, taking a back seat to avoid conflict, or talking yourself out of things that your heart truly wants. We call it compromise. We call it being reasonable. But here's the truth, sis. Sometimes we're negotiating against ourselves. Every little adjustment, every self-erasure chips away at our confidence, at our joy, and at our sense of worth. That's why today we're going there. The hidden way strong, accomplished Black women shrink in love, why this happens, and how to start reclaiming the space that you deserve without feeling guilty. We're not doing that today. If you're new here, I am Marshaun Olaniyan, and I am a shift relationship strategist. I specifically help and serve professional Black women to get them to show up and relax their boss mode so they can be a part of a beautiful, loving relationship without feeling like they need to give up their power or even all of their control, as we've been told. You are watching and or listening to KCCR Brownstone Cityscapes Radio. And I welcome you. Listen, for this next 30 minutes, we are talking about negotiating against yourself. The hidden ways that you shrink in love and how this can be detrimental to you, to your life, to your child or children that are watching you. Let's just jump right into this because there's a lot of stuff to cover in these next 30 minutes. If you are a note taker, this is the time for you to get your pen and paper and or your smartphone and your notes app and take some notes. And as I always say, don't come here just to gather the information, just to listen. Take what is applicable to your life and actually apply it so you can start seeing your life and your relationships get better all around you. With that being said, there is the subtle erosion of yes. What do I mean? Every yes that you give against your gut, and I've talked about the gut a lot here, it is a tiny surrender of your power. Let me say that again. Every yes that you give against your gut is a tiny surrender of your power. Compromises that feel reasonable can actually be self-sabotage. What I found with doing my research in this is that 65% of women admit they compromise their needs in dating to avoid confrontation. Are you one of these 65% people that avoid confrontation? I know a lot of times we think that arguing in a relationship can be the worst thing. It makes us feel like our relationship is bad, when in fact, it's not the arguing that takes place per se. It's how you two are arguing. You are allowed to disagree with your partner. And in fact, it is actually healthy for the two of you to disagree. I want you to think about this. Have you ever known a couple where on the outside looking in, they seem to be the epitome of the relationship goals that you have in your mind, right? And then months or maybe even a few years go by and then they break up. For the outside world, it looked really all of a sudden. But for the couple, the ex-couple at this point, in their relationship, they seem to never argue, right? And they only had a few arguments. However, the difference is whenever they had arguments, their arguments were very toxic. They hit below the belt and they didn't have a structured way to release their pent up emotions and frustrations to one another. When they did get ticked off, when the things did come to the surface and everything was boiling over, they blew up like a volcano. And I talk about that all the time on this channel, blowing up like a volcano. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help your partner. It doesn't help the relationship. So just because you're arguing, it does not mean that you have a bad relationship. Healthy arguments are the way to go. And if you know anything about Dr. John Gottman, him and his wife have been studying couples specifically for the past 30 plus years. I bring him up because he specifically says that by just listening to his, let me back up. The number one predictor in couples that he has studied, if they're going to get a divorce and or break up, is how they argue. It's not that you can't argue, it's how you're arguing. If the two of you are very toxic in the argument, you can best believe that at some point your relationship will end. It's not about the arguing. It's how you're doing it with one another, how respectful you are, how you're able to control your emotions while the things that they're saying are ticking you off, or you're feeling like you're being lied to. Being able to ground yourself so you can think clearly, so you can have a response versus a reaction, really is going to help the way that you're showing up in your relationship. And so again, 65% of women admit that they compromise their needs in dating to avoid confrontation. Now, I want to just slow down here because I created a tool specifically for you trying to find out your areas of weakness as well as your areas of strength. It is a quiz. It's specifically curated for Black professional women like yourself to really figure out what patterns you are bringing into each relationship as to why your relationships are not lasting the test of time, and or they seem to be going well and all of a sudden you break up, or you're no longer together. This tool is called What's Blocking You from Being Soft in Love. What's blocking you from being soft in love? It is a quiz. Not only will you get your results sent to you via email, you will also receive a 3-page action plan so you can take the steps to say, okay, I know something is happening. I might not be able to pinpoint it. This quiz is going to help you to pinpoint what's actually happening with you so you can start to correct said behaviors. So if that interests you, look for the link in the show notes in the description so you can go ahead and take the quiz today. Again, it's specifically for professional Black women. It's curated just for you, some of the things that we actually go through as Black women, and it's going to help you to get over those things. With that being said, let's jump back into point number 2. Convincing yourself it's not that big of a deal is how you start to negotiate against yourself. Minimizing your feelings is a way of keeping peace at your own expense. Why are we holding things in? Because when you do that, again, I just said it. You're minimizing the things that you need to get off your chest in order to keep the peace in the household, when in fact you're really starting to destroy the relationship, whether you realize it or not, by trying to keep the peace, because you're not doing it in a healthy way. You are actually suppressing what's going on with you. Another thing is that small concessions add up and lead to resentment. If you're constantly holding things in, you're suppressing your emotions, you're suppressing saying things to avoid conflict or to keep the peace, if you will. Every time you do that, it's like a building block. And each time your building block is growing. All of this in between, from here to here, all starts to become resentment, and it starts to show up and come out in your relationship in many different ways. One of the things that I read from this is 70% of women report ignoring emotional needs to keep things smooth. Don't be a part of the 70%. Don't be a part of the 70%. Just because the majority is doing something does not make it right. Okay? Case in point, slavery. Anywho, okay? Doesn't make it right. Telling yourself it's fine, he doesn't introduce me to his friends yet, even though it bothers you, is another way that you are chipping away and negotiating against yourself. This is another way that you are shrinking in love. You don't have to do these things. If you're feeling like you cannot just be you with the guy that has chosen you, that you have chosen, he's not your guy. I just have to be very clear about this. If the best way that you can tell if the person is really for you, after you have left their presence and your endorphins are starting to come down and everything is settling, right? I want you to simply ask yourself, how did I feel, or how do I feel when I'm in this person's presence? When I'm around Keith, that's your man's name, right? So when I'm around Keith, how do I feel when I leave Keith's presence? Do I feel a longing to want to be back in his presence, or am I, deep breaths, I'm relieved? If you are the latter, if you are relieved when you're out of your booze, company, out of your partner's company, I'm telling you, that is not your partner. That is not your partner. We gravitate toward and want to be around and in the company of people that make us feel good about us, that make us feel good about being in their company, that make us laugh, that make us bring out the joy, that brings out the silliness in us, that brings out yes, they can give you advice and the both of you can have serious conversations, but can you really be you in that relationship? I remember I told this story on here before, which was I had a client who, she used to wear wigs all the time. And I remember her creating a post on social media. And she didn't tell me directly, but I saw the post on social media. And she was essentially saying that this is the freest she's ever felt because everybody else had this expectation that she would always wear these wigs and never wear her natural hair. And she has some hair issues as well, like underneath as to why she's wearing the wigs. But that's beside the point. The point is now that she's in this relationship that she's currently in with this particular guy, she can wear the wigs and be fine, but she can also wear her natural hair in its natural state with the hair issues there and still feel loved, still feel beautiful, still feel taken care of, still feel not only with herself, comfortable with who she is, comfortable being able to take off the wig, i.e. the mask, taking off all of the makeup and eyelashes and whatever else that you feel that you must have on in order for your partner to love you, to see you. If you cannot take all of that stuff off and still feel like this partner sees me, my partner loves me, my partner adores me, that is not your partner. If you feel like you have to show up in any other way other than the way that you would show up with a friend that you're just he and ha with and just having a really great time, if you can't be in your sweats with this person as well as dress up, this is not your person. I cannot say that enough because I think a lot of us fall into the trap of wanting to be in light, wanting to be in love, and all the while we are performing and pretending to be someone else. Take inventory with the people, specifically your partner, but even your friendships, the people that you can just be you with. If you cannot just be you with these people that you have in your life, it's time to make some changes. I digress. Sometimes we shrink in our relationships, and specifically our love relationships, because we have a fear of them saying, you being too much, you doing too much. Women are socialized to avoid conflict and to be pleasing. You've heard it your entire life and how we were groomed by our parent and guardians on how women or how little girls are supposed to act and the things that they're supposed to do. Just like little boys are groomed and the things that they should and shouldn't be doing. And I'm thinking about boys shouldn't cry, or boys shouldn't play with girls' dolls, or boys shouldn't, so we've both been groomed on different sides. It's just a matter of you waking up and, as they say, coming out of the matrix, waking up from the matrix and now being able to make your own decisions. So you're not just going along with what everybody is doing and how everybody is doing it. You can make informed decisions on how you want to live your life and be happy with the choices that you are making. This fear makes you negotiate for less than you deserve. Have you ever found yourself shrinking because you're like, I don't want to say that because of what you're believing he's going to say about you, or what you're believing he's going to think about you because of how you really want to show up. Like, maybe you have a very loud voice, a very loud vernacular. You're just a loud person and you heard it, but this is how you speak, right? But because you have a fear that you're coming off as being too much, now you soften your voice. You soften your tone when asking for clarity so he won't feel pressured. So instead of you talking in your normal voice like this, maybe you hype or whatever, you bring it down 1,000 notches, because even though you're asking for said thing, he's really not taking it seriously because you're too soft-spoken in this moment because of the fear that you have with him believing or thinking, oh, she too much. If the person says that you too much, that ain't your person, baby. It's not your person. And that's okay, because now that we can recognize some of these things that are being said, i.e. red flags to you about you. Like if you're not a loud person, or if this thing doesn't apply to you, where you've never heard that you're too much, it doesn't apply to you. Move on to something that does. I get that. However, for those who I have plenty of clients that have said they have heard that they are too much, specifically when it comes to their partnerships. Now, they may have heard it from their friends, but their friends are still their friends, ride or die, A, B, C, D, blah, 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 moving on. But from their partner, it hits harder when it's coming from your partner than it comes from your friends, especially friends that have been there forever. Black women are often labeled angry 2 times more than white women when asserting their needs, according to Center for Work and Gender Equity in 2021. We know this. I didn't even need to put the stat out there. We know that whenever we have a demeanor that is seeming to be intimidating by others, or we're not playing the game, or we don't, smile all of the dog on time, all of a sudden we're angry about something. We could me and a white woman, you and a white woman could be saying the exact same thing, and yet and still is taken as, wow, I hear it from the white woman, but woo, she's angry. Like, we've been programmed even by the news outlets. Whenever whenever they put a scenario where the 2 groups are doing the same thing, it's usually black and white, right? 2 groups are doing the exact same thing. The black group always gets demonized. Even the wording changes. For white people, they always say when they're angry or aggressive, they don't use those words. Those are for the black people. The words that they use are very passionate. They're just passionate about the thing that they're saying. They could be saying more, and I'm about to not talk right. They could be saying more wrong stuff. I'm talking about some heinous stuff that they want to do to you, but you will still get the angry, aggressive, all of those words that can trigger some of us, and they'll get passionate. They just really love what they're doing. They didn't mean any harm by it, right? And so we're getting programmed by all of these things around us. I don't watch the news anyway, for the most part. Some of it is for the programming, but then the other is just so depressing, and it's always the worst stuff. And we know that the worst stuff sells. More people will watch the news if it's horrible stuff on there than if they put all of the beautiful things that are occurring in our world and in our life on there. It wouldn't sell. It wouldn't sell. I digress. I keep going down rabbit holes because I need for you to understand that these things are not just playing a part in your romantic relationships. They're in all of our relationships. We just have to be aware of it. And once you're aware of it, once you see something, once you hear something, you can't unsee it. You can't unhear it. But you're aware, right? You're aware of it. It's a matter of how you use these things. So the fear of being too much, if you're feeling like you can't be you with your boo, that's really not your boo, and you should move on. Another way that we shrink in our love lives and how we are negotiating against ourselves is the trap of over explaining. We forget that no is a full sentence. There is a courtesy that happens when we decide to explain. It's not something that we should automatically feel, well, I must explain why I'm doing, or I must explain why I believe ABC. I must explain why I don't want to do said thing. That's a courtesy. That's a courtesy. It's not something that is written in stone where it is a must. Explaining your wants repeatedly can make you doubt your own needs. When we don't feel like we could just say no. And then if you want to explain, like really knowing that if I want to explain, I can, but I don't have to. And a lot of that is rewiring how we're showing up and rewiring our own programming. It took me a while to get to just being able to say no without explaining, because I felt like I always had to explain my no. When in fact, you don't have to explain your no. Again, think of it as a courtesy that you're explaining your no if you feel like you want to. Now, for me, it depends on, like, if it's with my partner, of course, I'm going to explain with my partner. If it's with my friendship, I'm going to explain my no. If it's an associate, no means no, right? So categorizing, and that's the way that I like to do it, because I want my relationships to flourish, and I also want my friends to understand why I'm saying no, as well as my partner, right? So I'm giving them more grace, I'm giving them more explanation, because I cherish the relationship and I want it to continue. But for those where I don't have any skin in the game and I don't really care about if the relationship or that person in particular is staying around in my life, move on. No means no. Over explanation signals neglect or self-neglect versus strength. So just keep all of these things in mind. It could be something like, I just feel like, multiple times to avoid sounding demanding, right? I just feel like, instead of just saying it is what it is, like, because it is what it is. Another study showed that women over-explain requests 50% more than men in relationships. 50% more. We could take a page out of our partner's books. When they say no, it's just no. Now, again, in healthy relationships, the partner, in this case, the man, does explain why it's no. In healthy relationships, I believe that you should lean into the explanation with your partner, because that relationship should mean something to you. You should want to nurture it. You should want to put their mind at ease as to why you're saying no. And it has nothing to do with them, right? But at the same time, if he doesn't want to explain, he doesn't feel like he has to. 50% more. You hear that? We women, we explain 50% more in our relationships. I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing. What I am saying, though, is that we could take a page out of our partner's books, out of men's books in particular, and stop feeling like we have to explain. You can, but remember, that's a courtesy. It's not a must. It's not a must do. And this is why I created the quiz. This is why I created that tool, so you can really figure out the patterns that are keeping you stuck. And so you can jump off of that hamster wheel. So after this, click the link, take the quiz now. I highly recommend taking the quiz, because again, you're not only going to get your results sent to you, you will get a 3-page action plan, so you'll know what to do next. Now I got what's holding me back, what my areas of weakness are. Here's the next thing to do. Check it out. The next thing is, a lot of us have patterns, as I mentioned, right? But patterns from our past relationships. Old habits teach us to shrink to avoid abandonment or conflict. If you're struggling with the feelings of abandonment, if there is past baggage that you have not dealt with or are currently dealing with, this stuff is affecting you. This stuff is affecting you. It's affecting your relationship. It's affecting how you're showing up. It's affecting how open you are. It's affecting how much you are allowing your partner to get really close to you, get close to your heart. It's affecting all of these areas. It's affecting how you think. It's affecting your belief systems. It's affecting your actions. It's affecting everything in every area, but specifically with your romantic partner and even with yourself, because now we're going down, like, do I even trust myself? That's a different story. I'm just saying. We negotiate for less because we've been trained to survive love. Let me say that again. We negotiate for less because we've been trained to survive love. 60% of women carry unhealed relational patterns into new partnerships. That's a high number. That's so high because a lot of us are not doing the inner work, the deeper inner work. We're not taking the time to really invest. Invest means monetary. Invest could be coaching, like working with someone like me. It could be purchasing courses. It could be purchasing books. It could be purchasing PDFs. It could be going to the library and getting free books, right? It could be watching YouTube videos. It could be a lot of things to invest in yourself, but specifically monetary, especially when you're working with a coach, a therapist, a counselor, somebody that you're actually paying money to. Why? Because they're going to help you to get to the root of the problem a lot faster. You can read 1,000,000 books. Absolutely. Yes, you can, but it's going to take you longer to get the information. Wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if you can actually just work with someone that can say, hey, and pinpoint what's actually happening, because they've been doing this for years. And there's patterns that show up with the type of clients that they are attracting, right? And so in that conversation, in that session, there are things that I specifically can pinpoint that you have never thought about. 60% of women carry unhealed relational patterns in new partnerships. That's why it's so important to invest in yourself. Invest in yourself by taking the quiz. That might be your first investment. Doing something free so you can get to and get on the other side a lot faster by just taking one extra step to do even more inner work. There is an invisible cost of you compromising. Small concessions may feel harmless, but they accumulate over time. And over time, invisible compromises can impact your self-esteem. It can impact your intimacy with yourself as well as with your partner. And it can impact the clarity that you want and even deserve, all by these compromises that you're not even aware most of the time that you're doing. For instance, you could be avoiding sharing your true opinions to keep the peace. There's something that you really, truly want to say to your partner about the thing that they just asked your advice on. But instead of you going and giving them the real answer, the real way that you feel about the thing, you placate them. And it's only hurting you as well as them. Chronic self-negotiation is linked to higher anxiety and relationship dissatisfaction. Chronic self-negotiation is linked to higher anxiety and relationship dissatisfaction. Actually, I'm going to give you a bonus one here. Here's how to reclaim your voice in love. One of the things that you can do is articulate your needs every time. And every time that you articulate your needs, you expand your power. Every time. Not being mean, just having clarity and being able to voice the things that you want, need, and desire to your partner. Being open, being honest, having this is where I'm at, this is where I want to go, and this is what I'm doing so I can get there. Another thing that you can do to stop shrinking in love is old-fashioned boundaries. Setting and enforcing boundaries. Boundaries are proof that you are worthy of being heard and honored. They're the proof. Because you understand your worth. You understand that if you don't stand up for yourself, that others will absolutely walk over you. And because you're no longer willing to self-sacrifice, you're like, I must say this is a boundary. And then if a said line is crossed, now you're able to say, hey, we had a conversation. This was the boundary. It was crossed. Here are the consequences for crossing said boundary. So that's not only setting them, there's the enforcing that comes from, listen, this is your consequence for stepping over the line. Couples who practice open need articulation report 35% higher satisfaction. Be a part of the 35% so that number can climb up, because you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be in a relationship where you feel heard and seen. You deserve to be and recognize a partner that is showing you more green flags than they are showing you red flags. A lot of us harp on and hold on to the red flags, right? Which is a great thing. You should know the red flags, but you should also be aware of and understand that there are men out there that will showcase the green flags as well. Sis, shrinking to make love easier or safer is a pattern, but it doesn't have to be your story. Negotiating against yourself only keeps you stuck in cycles of uncertainty and compromise. So if you're ready to break free and start asking for the love that you deserve, I mentioned the quiz already. What's blocking you from being soft in love? It'll help you uncover the hidden patterns, keeping you from showing up fully and being received fully in love. I love you guys, and there's nothing that you can do about it. I will see you next week where we tackle another topic that is plaguing our community, specifically as Black women. I will see you.